All right, so we are recording. I'm going to share my screen and then we're going to get rolling here. Let me find my button. Okay. Can everybody see this all right? Okay, excellent. Okay, so our topic today is cheating, obviously. Identifying dishonesty, preventing dishonesty, and developing a classroom culture of integrity. So in my mind, there's kind of three parts to this topic. The first part is how and why do students cheat in the first place? What can we do to deter cheating or detect it when it happens? And then how can we rethink our assessments and cultivate a culture of academic integrity in our classrooms? That's a big topic. I don't want that to sound intimidating. I don't want that to sound like something we need to work on right now at the end of a quarter, but it's kind of a philosophical way of rethinking how we do things in a way that promotes integrity. Okay, so just to kind of give us a sense of why we should care about this, how common is cheating? There's a guy named Donald McCabe who has been studying academic integrity and cheating in high schools and in colleges for about 15, 20 years. And he has surveyed tens of thousands of students on many different campuses all across the United States. And here are the results that he's come up with in the last 15 or so years. 39% of undergraduate college students in his surveys admit to cheating on a test. 62% admit to cheating on a written assignment. 68% admit to cheating in some way at least once during their college career. And again, this doesn't mean that all of these students are cheating constantly, but at least one time they have cheated. And so that we don't think this is just a college problem, unfortunately it starts in high school. 95% of high school students admitted to cheating during high school. So why do students cheat? Again, there's good research on why this happens. And I've got references along the bottom of these slides and I'll share them with you later so you can kind of look those up if you want. Performance concerns. If a student is one of those students that wants to achieve that perfect grade, wants that A, wants that 4.0, wants to get into grad school, all these things, then sometimes they feel pressure to cheat just to ensure that they get that A. External pressures can mean all of the things that happen outside of the classroom to a student. You know, maybe they are a parent, maybe they're a single parent, maybe they have a full-time job, maybe they have a chaotic or stressful home situation, maybe they don't have a home. You know, we do have students that couch surf because they are homeless. All these external pressures lead to students feeling like they are not going to succeed on their own merits. Conflicting loyalties. What this means is if a buddy, a classmate, a friend, a teammate asks you for help on something, you know, let me take a look at that paper you wrote. I'm not going to copy it, I just want to look at it. And then you are pressured to share that work with them. In a lot of cases, when we see paper sharing, the student that originally wrote the paper will claim, either rightly or wrongly, that they didn't know their buddy was going to just copy the paper. They thought they were doing them a favor, but what they were really doing is enabling cheating. Opportunity. If an assignment is set up in a way that makes cheating incredibly easy, sometimes students will just take it. Not because they planned on cheating, but because it was so easy to accidentally just accept the answers or something. And we'll talk about what that means in a little while. Lack of effort, you know, let's not deny that sometimes students just don't get the work done on time. They don't study like they know they should. They don't get started on the paper early enough and they run out of time, or they just didn't put in the effort and then they cheat as a way of compensating for that. And then lastly, the culture of your campus or classroom. Lots of research and studies have shown if a student believes that their classmates are cheating, they're more likely to cheat themselves. Whether that is true or false, if their perception is that lots of people are doing it and getting away with it, they're more likely to do it themselves. Okay, so what are some common methods of cheating? Study guide websites. I don't know how familiar any of you are with those. Sites like Quizlet, Course Hero, Chegg. Now, a lot of these are legitimate websites. They do offer real study guides and real services, tutoring services, and that sort of thing to help students. But sometimes they just straight up have answer keys for tests. And we'll talk a little bit about that more later. Both tests and assignments from publishers, but also sometimes tests and assignments created by instructors. This is more of a problem on really big campuses where you have 50, 60,000 students, but sometimes students will share their test keys from one semester to the next, and sometimes they use these sites to do it. Waiting for answers or test collusion. So let me give you a specific example of this that I helped an instructor deal with a couple of years ago when I was at a different institution. This instructor was starting to get a little suspicious because everybody was getting the same score on their tests. He didn't really notice this until about halfway through the semester. And what we determined was the way he had his quizzes set up, once a student finished the test, they could go back in and look at all the answers and see what they got wrong, but also see what the correct answer would have been. What the entire classroom ended up doing was they all got together on instant messaging and they set up a system where for each test, one student would be the sacrificial lamb, take the test, and then write down all the answers after they finished it and give it to everybody else. So I would take the test the first time, maybe I only got a C- on it, but I wrote down the answers, gave it to everybody else, they all got an A. Next test, somebody else would be the sacrifice. They would take the test and then share the answers with everybody else. And unfortunately, this instructor didn't realize this was happening until I think 3 or 4 tests had been finished in this way. Falsely claiming systems errors is something that we see a lot. This can look like a few different things. It might be a student claiming, oh, I started the test, but something happened. My computer crashed or the website stopped responding and I couldn't get it done in time. Sometimes that does happen. Sometimes that is true. And sometimes students lie about that. Another form of false error that I have seen is, this is more for written assignments. A student will submit a file that is intentionally corrupted. It might be a different file format and they change the name to .docx so it looks like a Word document, but you can't open it, Canvas can't open it. So the instructor will reply to the student, I can't read your document, something went wrong, can you resubmit it? Sometimes they don't realize this for a couple days, and it basically gives the student 2 or 3 extra days to get their work done. So I've seen that happen. Paper writing services, also called contract plagiarism. There are many websites online that you can go, and for not very much money, you can tell somebody on this website, I need a 4-page paper on such and such topic with 4 references in it. And somebody will write that for them. We do not currently use a service like Turnitin or one of those plagiarism checkers, but even if we did, usually those paper writing services will not get flagged by those because somebody is writing an original paper, it's just not your student. Paper recycling is another thing that sometimes we see. This one's a little more iffy for some people, but a student might write a paper in one class and then submit it a second time in a different class. So they're recycling their own work, they're self-plagiarizing. That's really hard to check because it's kind of in that student's own written voice. But this happens when a written assignment is a little too broad or a little too open-ended. So it's very easy for them to transfer a paper from one class to a different class. Also, paper recycling happens from buddies, again, collusion, where you're borrowing your buddy's paper to look at it. And unfortunately, I've seen cases where the student forgot to even change the name on the paper. and they submitted it with their buddy's name on it. Sometimes these are not very sophisticated forms of cheating. Sometimes it's a little trickier than that. Okay, so when it comes to tests and quizzes, particularly in Canvas, there are a few things you can do to deter cheating. So again, sites like Quizlet or Course Hero, especially if you are relying on test banks created by a textbook publisher, chances are very high those questions are out there on the internet on one of these sites. And they will have what they call study guides or flashcards, but what they really are answer keys for those test banks. So unfortunately, I am very, very wary of using publisher test banks for this reason. Do a Google search of some of your quiz questions and just see what happens. Copy the exact text of your question, type it into Google, put quotation marks around it so that it looks for the entire phrase, and just hit search and see what comes up. Unfortunately, there's a good chance that the first result is going to be Quizlet, and the answers are just there. So if that happens, you know, don't panic, don't feel like, oh crap, it's the end of the semester, I have this quiz ready to go, and now I'm not confident in it. It's not that hard to just modify or rewrite some of the questions. Even just a little bit is usually enough to throw off those students trying to Google search for the answer. This is easier if you're teaching like a math class or chemistry class or something where you can actually just change the figures of the question so that the formula is different. But you can also do this in a more of a social studies or liberal arts type of class or writing class. You just need to tweak that prompt a little bit. Also helps to add an essay question, just one or two at the end of your questions, end of your quizzes, because then the student actually has to write something in their own words. So if you have a student who aces every single one of those multiple choice questions and then is completely lost on the essay question, that might mean they went on Quizlet, they found the answer key, they didn't study, and now they don't know how to answer the written question. Another thing that you should definitely do is check the quiz settings in Canvas for your quiz. I'm not going to go into all the technical details on this. I have a link at the bottom here with a Canvas guide on how to do this, or contact me or Patrick, or not Pat, Ben, or Jerry or Vanessa, and we can help you with those things if you need technical assistance. But some of the things that you should look at in Canvas, make sure that shuffle answers are checked off. What that means is for all multiple choice questions, it'll automatically shuffle up all the answers for each student. What this will do is it makes it harder for students to do test collusion, where two buddies are on different computers taking the test at the same time and kind of working through it together. It's harder to do that if the answers are in a different order. You can't just tell your buddy the answer to question 1 is A, the answer to question 2 is C, because those are going to be in different order for each person. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it's literally one checkbox on your quiz settings, and it will offer a little bit of extra security. Setting time limits on your quiz. There's a lot of different rules of thumb on how to do that. One easy rule of thumb is to time yourself taking the quiz and then triple it, and then that's your time limit. Another rule I've seen is 30 or 60 seconds for each multiple choice question, and that kind of depends on the difficulty of the material, whether this is cumulative or something from just the last chapter. There's no hard and fast rule on this, but those are a couple rules of thumb. But having a somewhat strict time limit makes it harder for a student to just rely on Google searching. If you have to search out each question on Google rather than actually knowing the information, you're probably going to run out of time. Don't forget any student accommodations. If you have a student that has an accommodation for time and a half on quiz or something, make sure you're also setting that up. So be aware of that when you're doing these time limits. Check your quiz responses settings in each of your quizzes, because again, there's a setting in there that lets you determine what a student sees after they finished a quiz. You can let them see just the score that they earned, or not even that if you manually grade it. There's a setting where you can show them what they got wrong, but it won't just give them the answer. And then there's also a checkbox that will show them what the correct answer would have been. I do not recommend that you have that checked off almost ever, because again, it just makes it so easy. It gives them the opportunity to cheat. And even a student that wasn't planning on cheating, if they have a friend in the class and that setting is checked off, honestly, it's almost stupid of them not to just share those answers if it's that readily available to them. So check those quiz responses settings. Another thing to consider is using question groups. And this is one area where using test banks can be helpful, because you can have hundreds of questions for a particular chapter or topic in your textbook. If you use question groups, the way that that is set up is you'll have a group of 10 questions, and you have it set so that each student gets one of those 10 questions in their quiz. So that essentially each student is getting a completely different quiz. It's all on the same topic, it's all coming from the same bank of questions, but they're getting different assortments of questions in different orders. And that's another way to deter collusion and answer sharing. And again, if you have any questions about the technical details of that, feel free to call me or email me. Okay, so for writing assignments, totally different sort of problem. The first thing you should do is get writing samples early. The biggest mistake that I have seen instructors do on this is they will have a very large, very high stakes paper assignment, about say halfway through the semester, and nothing before that. You just, okay, 5-page, 10-page paper, go, with no previous writing samples, no introduction assignment, no reflection drills or anything like that. Usually, again, we don't have Turnitin or a plagiarism checker like that at CCS, but usually as an instructor, you are very good at picking up on a student's written voice. If you have seen a student's writing before, chances are really good that you would notice if something was amiss in a different writing sample. So if you're worried about plagiarism or contract papers, having those writing samples is a huge help on that, just to identify, I know how this student writes, I know what their voice sounds like, and this isn't them. Kind of going along with that, scaffold your writing assignments. Don't just give them a 5-page paper with no previous scaffolding. Require them to turn in, a proposal, a draft, an introduction paragraph, and have them kind of do that ahead of time. So again, have some scaffolding in there. Okay, by Wednesday, I want you to have a 1-paragraph proposal on what you're going to write and give that to me. By Friday, I want you to have the intro paragraph done. By next week, I want a draft to look at, and then I want the final assignment. Doing this does a couple things. One, it makes it very hard to do contract writing this way, because you can't, or you're not going to, okay, I need somebody else to write me an intro paragraph now, and then next week I'm going to have them write me a full paper. Or I'm going to have somebody else write me a proposal, and then I'm going to do this. It makes it much harder to use a contract writer. The second thing it does is kind of removes some of that external pressure. Again, one of the big motivations for cheating is when a student just runs out of time. And when you are requiring them to scaffold this work over time, then it is more manageable for that student. There's less sense of pressure, less sense of panic, and less motivation to even have to cheat. Personalize your writing prompts. Again, it's really hard for somebody else to write a paper for you if it's about your experience or your environment or your knowledge or understanding. So if it is appropriate in your particular subject area, if you can personalize these writing prompts a little bit, it goes a long way towards requiring a student to do their own work. Have questions like, write a paper about something that happened to you as a child, or something that has happened in your community, or something like that. Again, it depends on your subject area, whether that's appropriate or not, but the more you can personalize it, the harder it is for them to cheat on that. Check suspect writing samples. Again, even though we don't have a plagiarism checker, it's not hard to pop a suspect sentence into Google and see what comes up. That's not necessarily going to catch really sophisticated plagiarism where they're going on to like a journal article through the library database or something that's not just available on Google. But honestly, most of the time, that's not where students are getting this material that they're plagiarizing. They're just doing a Google search. They're pulling it off of Wikipedia. They're pulling it off an article somewhere. So it's not hard to check those when you suspect that something is off about this. Same with references and citations. Sometimes a student will write their own paper, but they'll fudge the references. If you require, I want X number of citations on this paper, a lot of times students are going to assume you're not going to look at those, and they'll either grab citations that they don't actually reference, or in some cases, they just make them up. There are actually websites that will generate fake references for you. And it'll make up a fake author, a fake title, a fake journal name, and put it into perfect MLA or APA citation format. You just copy it and paste it in your document. So sometimes it's worth just doing a quick reference check. Make sure it's a real document they're referencing. If you're able to look at it, maybe check it and make sure it's actually relevant to the topic at hand. Again, if you have suspicions, check the file submission metadata. And again, that's something technical that I can help you with if you ever need it. But what it means is anytime you you create a document on your computer, it's gonna have some metadata in it. It's gonna show whose account was used to create this document. Jenny, I think your sound is on. I'm getting a lot of, maybe I told someone else on there. Oh, okay. But anyway, the metadata will show you who was the original author, and sometimes this is a very effective way of catching, especially contract plagiarism. Or if it's just your buddy's paper. If you borrowed your buddy's document and changed the name on it and resubmitted it, you'll still be able to see that this student was not the original author. Now, this isn't perfect because a sophisticated student will know to copy the text out of the document and put it in a fresh document that they've created. But a lot of times the students are not that sophisticated on this, and you can catch them in the act this way. So again, if you're ever worried about this, feel free to contact me or someone else at eLearning and just say, I've got a bad feeling about this paper. Can you take a look at it and see what you think? And there's some things that we can do to look at it and kind of help determine, well, that is a little suspect. And again, if you have these suspicions, but you can't prove anything, ask the student some questions about the paper. Call them into your office and say, hey, I had a question about this. Why did you choose this citation? Why did you write this sentence in this way? What was your reasoning behind this paragraph? And if they wrote it themselves, they should be able to answer that pretty easily. And if they didn't write it, you're gonna get a deer in the headlights stare. Okay, I'm gonna kind of roll through the rest of this so that Scott doesn't have to miss too much. So that's kind of some easy ways of detecting and deterring cheating. But kind of going beyond that, what could we do in our classroom with our activities and our assessments that are harder to cheat on, or just don't invite cheating? So some of the activities that may invite cheating, activities with higher stakes but lower order thinking. If you're doing lots of multiple choice quizzes with very high grade points attached, that's something that invites cheating. Quiz questions provided by textbook publishers are very easy to find the answer keys for. Broad or general writing topics are easy to plagiarize, easy to borrow from a buddy, easy to recycle from your own previous work, easy to get a contract writer for. And large summative assignments without any preceding drafts or scaffolding. Again, you are always going to have students in that case, if they don't have that guidance, they will wait till the last minute, they'll run out of time, they'll panic, and they might decide that cheating is their only way out. So what are some activities that can discourage cheating? Formative assessments with lower stakes. If you're going to use multiple choice quizzes, just don't make them worth as many points. Call them self-tests, call them self-assessments, call them practices. Still put a point value on it so students do it. But if it's not worth 25% of their final grade, they're less likely to feel the pressure to cheat. Quiz questions that test higher order thinking. So it's difficult but not impossible to write a really good multiple choice question that actually requires some critical thinking and some thought. You know, do a scenario question, something that requires kind of some step-by-step logic to get to the correct answer. You can make multiple choice questions that require higher order thinking. Again, using essay questions or writing prompts in your own words, how do you define such and such? Again, scaffolded activities that build on each other throughout a quarter. So at the beginning of the semester, you're gonna write an intro paragraph by yourself. And then later in the semester, you're gonna do some reflection journals about your own thought process during this class. And then you're gonna make a paper that kind of pulls all that stuff together. By scaffolding that, by creating those steps and those layers, it's both harder to cheat and less tempting to cheat. And then activities that require creative efforts, like creating a video or doing a portfolio or anything like that, is again much harder to cheat on because you have to actually use your own creativity, your own experience to create those things. If you ask a student to record a video of themselves, they can't cheat on that. It's them. Either they're in the video or they're not. And then lastly, developing a culture of academic integrity. Take some time to talk about what is and is not acceptable academic behavior. Because again, we know from many, many surveys and research that almost every high school student admits to cheating. And they do that because in high school, sometimes the teachers just don't care. Sometimes in some situations, the teachers kind of wink at it. Okay, today we are going to review next week's test. And what they're really doing is giving the students the answer key so that they can meet those standards and do what the school district is requiring of them. So sometimes we just need to talk about that at the beginning of the semester, especially for freshmen. Talk about the ways in which college is different from high school, the way those expectations are different. Sometimes a student is going to cheat because they don't even realize it's cheating, because they got away with it in high school and nobody caught them or nobody cared. Think about including an integrity statement in your syllabus. Here's just a basic example that I use in some of my syllabi. I expect all students to act with honesty and integrity, respect the rights of others in carrying out all academic assignments. Any act of plagiarism or academic dishonesty will lead to a failing grade in that assignment. Repeated instances can result in failing in the class, possible further sanctions by the department or college. And then include a link to either your college's or your department's academic integrity policies. And then, so that it's not just punitive and scary, I say, if you're ever in doubt about a citation or about getting help with an assignment or about anything else regarding academic integrity, ask me. I'm here to help you succeed, not to catch you in a mistake. You know, I'm not trying to trap you in something. I want you to know that you're doing the right thing. There's actually really good research that suggests simply asking a student to take an academic integrity quiz or to sign an integrity pledge greatly reduces the instances of cheating. Reduces it by like 30%. Just by doing this, it cuts out 30% of all your cheating. You can also do an integrity acknowledgement at the start of major assignments. I've seen some instructors that'll put a little integrity pledge at the start of a quiz, and the students have to sign that off before they actually do the quiz. And again, research says just by making a student think about that and acknowledge it greatly reduces the instances of cheating. And here's a really basic integrity pledge that I've seen from other campuses. I think this one was taken from the University of Richmond. On my honor, I pledge that I will not receive or give unauthorized assistance during the completion of this work. The work I'm submitting is my own and the work of others who have properly cited. I'm willing to accept any appropriate sanctions for violating the academic integrity policy. Just by having a student read that paragraph and check a box or sign their name, it is reducing their likelihood of cheating. Or again, of helping someone else cheat. Because again, the student may have the intention of being honest, but if their buddy asks them for help, they are pressured to do it. And by having that language there, they're more likely to resist that pressure.